Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate you taking this time out of your Saturday to learn about gigs and touring. My name's Nerea. I'm the co-founder of an organization called the Rising Artist Foundation, and we exist to give artists resources. And we are doing a program called Fourth River with the good folks at Honcho. And part of that program is to present music industry workshops on Saturdays, of which you are clearly well aware. Today's gonna be gigs and touring. I'm going to hand over the mic for it all to get started, but I just wanna lay out some ground rules not ground rules, but it's gonna be about 45 minutes of discussion up here and then 45 minutes of questions. So just keep any of those in mind, and then I'll be traipsing through to hand a mic to anyone who has a question. I do really want to thank all of our sponsors for making this happen. That's the Paul R. Judy Center, the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust, Citizens Bank, Ableton, Resident Advisor, which you'll learn a lot more later, um, and the Mac Miller Foundation, or the Mac Miller Fund. Sorry. Thank you all for being here again. And if you need bathrooms, they're that way. And so I'm handing it over.
Thank you, Maria. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, just want to repeat how nice it is to have all of you here. I know it's kind of nice weather outside, so we appreciate you spending your day with us. My name is Nyshka. I'm an editor with Resident Advisor. Anyone who's unfamiliar with that, we are a ticketing company and a music journalism website that has been running for about 25 years now. And we cover a lot of different topics, but one of my specialty areas is kind of like the business and the behind the scenes side of touring, gigging, bookings. So I'm very happy to be here. And we are all very lucky because we have two of the smartest, hardworking people in nightlife today. Hardest working and also nicest. Let me just say it, because sometimes that's rare. So we are blessed to have a lot of knowledge with us. And yeah, as Maria said, we're going to be chatting for 45 minutes, but please do write down your questions. We have a good chunk of time for Q&A, and this is a really rare chance for you to learn live and direct from these experts. Can I get both of you to introduce yourselves before we start?
Sure. My name is Mariesa Stevens. I'm an agent and co-owner of Liaison Artists. It's a booking agency that is based in San Francisco, California. We also have a location in New York. We celebrated our 20th year last year in business, which as an agency that's not a big corporation, that's a major feat. And yeah, thrilled to be here and share some insights with you guys.
Hello, I'm Aaron Clark. I'm one of the Honcho crew. I focus on a lot of the bookings with Honcho alongside the other guys, Clark and George. We DJ, so we are putting our own tour dates together. We have an agent, so that is if you're looking from a DIY perspective, I'm here to answer questions on that stuff. I have also briefly had an agent hat 11 years ago. It is the hardest job in the industry. So thank you, Mariesa. Got out of that pretty quickly. And then also I've had some experience booking venues. I did about a year and a half with Spirit coming off the pandemic, which was eye-opening. Learned the live music end of things there, which was cool. And then also at Hot Mass. So, yeah.
Wonderful. I think the best way to get started is just with the basics. I mean, no matter if you're a working artist, you're a promoter, or you're just someone who's interested in learning more about how this industry works, it's really important we figure out the main jobs of who does what when. Obviously, in this industry, it's very common for everyone to wear multiple hats and to be doing a lot of jobs. But for everyone here, it's important when you go to a show that you know who's responsible for what. So let's just start out with the basics. What is a promoter? What is a booker? Who is the main person that you should be talking to if you're an artist trying to book a show? So can both of you just kind of walk us through the main players in a show? Whether that's the booker, person organizing the show, obviously the talent, who we call the artists. Give us like a run through of like maybe the 3 or 4 most important people when it comes to running a show.
So I guess we would start as an agent. I am the representation for the artists. So I would be in touch with the bookers at festivals, clubs, things like that. So the bookers interface with the agents. The agents are responsible for routing tours in a sensible way. Like you don't want to have one date in New York and one the next night you're in LA. But so we try to organize those in a fashion where it makes sense in a routing perspective. And then the agent will be speaking to the booker either of a club or festival, but that's usually their moniker, club booker, talent buyer, those words are the same.
So when you say agent, just to clarify, you mean a booking agent.
Yes, so a booking agent, talent agent, that's what I do. Now a talent buyer, that would be someone that would work at a club or at a festival.
Yeah, and I would add that more established venues usually have a talent buyer or a booker in-house that is booking, like making sure their room is filled. Um that's like, here it would be like Spirit or the bigger venues, the Live Nation venues, the Mr. Smalls. We also, the dance scene here is very promoter oriented. So in the promoter can also act as the booker for a lot of these like more DIY independent events where it's promoter driven. So it could be either of those.
And sometimes there are promoters that work in lockstep with venues. Like let's say, like someone like Aaron, maybe he would come in and bring his brand to a venue and help to program the night like that as well.
And then talk to us about being a manager, right? So regardless if you're an up and coming artist or if you're someone fairly established, we'll talk about when you need a manager and when you need an agent, but just tell us what the job of a manager is supposed to do. It sounds like so many of these jobs are deeply connected and intertwined. So what is a manager supposed to do versus what a booking agent is supposed to do?
So a manager, they can do a lot of different things, but essentially your manager is somebody that is kind of in charge of your day to day. If you're a really heavily touring artist, maybe they're booking your flights, which we would call like advancing the shows, making sure you have pickups of when you arrive at the airport. That's kind of a lost art now, but we'll get to that later. But, those little things, getting all the little details, keeping your life together, kind of how I like to refer to it, where they could also be getting you opportunities for, releasing your music, things like that, all that stuff. Now, your booking agent, that person is just handling the touring arm of your business. They're just in charge of organizing your tours in whatever territories they represent you in. So a manager has a bit more to wrangle, I think, in certain aspects. It could be making sure you're getting in the studio and spending your time wisely there. Make sure that you're hitting your deadlines for getting your music out, things like this. Um, making sure you're got all your tax documents, all that stuff would fall under a manager, where agents really just purely looking at your tone.
Being a manager sounds like a full-time personal assistant.
That's why I'm an agent.
At what point do you think artists need a manager, right? Like, is it something you should be considering right from the start of your career? Like, let's say, you have talent, whether you're a producer, whether you're a band, you're ready to start playing live. Do you immediately need a manager, or is that something you think you can kind of handle by yourself?
Personally, this is a very popular question that I get asked a lot. And I think it's hard because you see everybody on social media and you see like what people are presenting to you in their careers. But I do think that you need to take time and develop yourself as an artist. Um, Understand what is your story and what are you trying to tell. I always say that agents, I'm just trying to give my artists the best platform to tell their stories and show us their art. So I think first of all, finding that identity, finding out like what does success mean to you? Is success making, a ton of money and playing all these big festivals? Is success building community wherever you go? Like there's many different things. So carving out your own identity and what your story is and what you want to tell, I think is the most important thing. I think a common misconception is that once you get an agent or a manager, that everything will just quickly fall in and they'll be able to plug you into all their channels and you'll be touring like that. And unfortunately, that's not how it works oftentimes. I like to tell people I think you should go for an agent first and then a manager. Um, some people do it in reverse, but my thing is, I think when wanting to get an agent, I think you should do it yourself until you can no longer do it anymore, until you are so busy with incoming requests that you couldn't possibly organize any shows or book your travel or anything like that. I had an artist that I work with, Ash Lauren. She lives in Atlanta. She was somebody that I approached and said, "Wow, I think you're amazing. I'd love to sign you." And she said, "I don't think I'm ready yet." And that was probably the first time I'd ever had an artist
Almost turned you down?
really say that. Not like that, but like a young artist say, "No, I don't think I'm ready." And she was right. She spent the next maybe year and a half tying up the loose ends of working a 9 to 5 and started to focus on her craft, make music, and she was ready when we started to work together. And we were very successful in those first couple of years. So I think there is something to be said for having patience, curating your vision, really knowing exactly what you want. Because when you come to me, I want to hear what is it that you want. And if you don't know that, it's going to be hard for me to get that for
Absolutely. That's so valuable. I think so many of us are in, a rush to get to where we want. And it's important to really figure out what you're trying to do with your own art. Aaron, tell us, have you had a manager in your early days? When did you start thinking about this kind of stuff? When did you know that you needed an agent, needed a manager? And how long were you doing things solo?
Well, I don't know if we have a manager or an agent. We definitely don't have an agent. Um, I think we do have a manager. I think it's Michael. If you guys know Michael, I think now I didn't actually know what a manager truly did until Mariesa explained it, and then I was like, I guess we do have one. Um, yeah, I mean, you really need to, like Mariesa said, find your voice and your identity, and I think you need to get out there. The biggest thing is like making these relationships yourself. You like you need to have a connection to these scenes and these other cities and these other people and these other promoters. I think, that authenticity can't be replaced. There's no replacement for that. You kind of got to do the time and the work doing it. I think one of the benefits of Pittsburgh, one of the, we may not have all the resources of larger cities, but one of the nice things about being here is that we are sort of in this weird, it's not East Coast, it's not Midwest, but it is right in the middle of them all. And you can get in the car or get in a bus or a slow train or, a quick plane, and you can be in like 7 or 8 different cities pretty quickly. So, you can, there's access to a lot of other people and communities doing what you're doing. So that's like one of the best things about living here. And they all have very similar scenes. Again, I'm only speaking from the dance perspective, but like, there's a DIY crew probably doing what you're doing in DC and Buffalo and, definitely New York, maybe Ohio. Yeah, I don't know. There's access to that. And that's what you really need to tap into first and find the people like you.
That's good because that really leads into my next question, right? So now that we've established who does what and what everyone's responsible for, let's get to the most I think the most important question of why you all here. How do you get booked as an artist? That you've discovered that you can make great music or that you're part of a band and you're ready to show off your talent to the world. But how do you get inside a venue, right? So maybe, as Mariesa and Aaron have told us, maybe you don't need a manager or a booking agent immediately. Maybe you can do that to yourself. Talk to your neighbors in different scenes, DC, wherever it might be. But how do you make connections with promoters and venues to get yourself on that stage? Is it a question of just cold email outreach? Does that work?
Sometimes I think the big thing to know is what you have to offer and where it fits. I think, you need to, I don't love cold emails, but if they're humble and they are coming from a place of like understanding who I am as a promoter, who we are, like the annoying email that comes in is like a press kit that they just like spammed, 100 people with that has no, connection to anything we're doing. That's really frustrating as a promoter. And I usually just delete that. I don't even give it I'm like, okay, here we go. But, someone who has been emailing first about, I love what you're doing and here's some music that I made and, start sending me demos or here's what we're doing or, just like more authentic connections that aren't asking for something. That is like step one. So I would say figure out what, you want to give to the people. And that can be like music or, just something else. I think that goes a long way and just build those relationships. And then, like the softest ask would be like, there's ever a spot that makes sense for me and what I do would love to be considered zero pressure. So, like, so you don't sound too thirsty,
Yeah. I think the press kit thing happens a lot to me as well. Like, why is somebody that is, a country singer sending me their press kit?
Know your audience
Yeah.
first.
Or even EDM, like,
It's same, absolutely. So knowing who you're reaching out to, and I think, something, especially on a local level, it is about building community. And if you're trying to get into these places, spend time there, support them, go and speak to them, learn who it is. I mean, before I was an agent, I just wanted to work in music. I wanted to do anything. I was literally going to clubs and just being like, I'll do anything for free. I'm not saying do that, but, just getting out there and participating in the community of which you want to be a part of is kind of crucial. And I think that would go a long way for somebody like Aaron to see someone like, hey, this is a young kid, he's got great taste or whatever it is. But, they're out there supporting in that way too, I think is helpful.
I would add that it shouldn't feel forced. You should find the people that you really want to be making these connections with. It should feel like fun.
And the most important thing I hear from so many DJs and emerging acts is that once you start going, let's say you want to play at X venue or X festival, if you just start going as a regular person, people see you, people clock that you're there and that you're investing time and that you're making friends. And then you send that nice email, like a politely worded email, like, hey, I think my sound would really match this particular night. I've been attending a lot and I see what you guys are trying to do. And then the next time they have an opening for a support slot, opening act, they're going to think of you and they're going to remember how nice you were. So that's always a key thing. Let's say, like you're brand new to the scene. Like, let's say you don't really have much music online or you don't have many mixes online. You don't have much of an online presence. How do you go about getting that opening act slot? Was it always a question of direct outreach and asking for it, or should you wait until someone offers it to you? I know a lot of artists feel really self-conscious about sending these cold emails, or maybe you're just not like the type of outgoing person to go and introduce yourself to the club's manager or, the programming director. What's some advice that maybe people who are a bit more shy can do to get themselves that slot that they want, if it's not the email or talking in person?
You, um,
Maybe
I
just
think
put
you really do need to have a mix or some music to get like no one's gonna book you on nothing. You don't need to go like show up in person, but you do need to demonstrate skill and quality and that you're a fit. Start there.
Yes. Even if you don't have like huge, strong social media or something like that, I even think getting a SoundCloud, getting some of your best mixes, if your personal music isn't ready, don't put it out. Put out your strongest things like a dating profile. You want to put out your best photos and your best attributes and all of these things to sell yourself. So if your production isn't to a place where you feel like it's ready for public consumption, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Just focus on a couple of really good quality mixes of, that would kind of match with where you're trying to display and focus and start there, you know? Even if it's only a few things. I'd rather see 2 or 3 really good things, really strong things that fit than like 15 things that are not very good, and kind of all over the place.
Also understand your role as an opener. That is the biggest lesson I learned immediately. And the most helpful one. You need to also demonstrate with your mixes that you know how to build from 0 to 100 and not overshadow the headliner. This is especially with like dance floors. With bands, a little bit different. You want to just see an overlapping sound. Cold emails are a little easier for a band lineup because if you can get ahead of it, the booker is usually trying to fill a lot of different slots. So, as you know, the advice there would be to get in early with them when you see a tour announced. Um, but yeah, you just really need to understand how to not like you shouldn't be at 140. You need to really build from show range and build the tension.
And I think that's also like a really thing that people, promoters, especially look at. I've gone in with artists and the opening DJ is playing some of the artists that's actually headlining their tracks. You're like, what? Why would you do that? Like just be smart. And I think building something, I think RA did a feature on like the art of opening, and it's actually a true art, someone that can just build up the room really nicely. It's also a way of perhaps getting the attention of the headliner that's playing after you. Like I've had many people, I in San Francisco where I'm from, there's so many talented local DJs there, and I've had many DJs. I mean, Dixon met a guy named Solar, who's like one of our local heroes, and literally saw him and was like, I'm taking on tour in Europe. And he did, and actually started his entire career just because he knew how to open for learning about who you're playing before, those sorts of things. So you can curate your set appropriately. But yeah, it's not really your moment. It's you setting it up for them and kind of keeping that in mind.
Which is satisfying.
There-
Like when you pull off a really good opening set, it's almost more. I mean, for me, it's more satisfying sometimes than playing a great peak hour set because it's like, all right, I did it.
Something else to keep in mind is that, if you don't have a big social media presence or you're just not really well known in whatever scene that you're trying to, like make a name for yourself in, doing your research on the lineup, as just what you were saying, Mariesa, that goes a long way, right? Because if you don't know why you're booked for the certain lineup, there's a reason behind that. So that will also help you figure out how to pace your opening set. So that's also something really important. The amount of bookers I've spoken to in New York who tell me that they don't really pay attention to an artist's social media. It's about what you have, what music you have online. So regardless if you're a band or you're a DJ, even if you're a perfectionist at heart, you still got to put something out there, make sure that your art is well displayed. And you don't have to play the social media game if you don't want it, but it is very important to put yourself out there and make sure that you're following the right people and make sure, like, yeah, you have a community mindset to putting yourself out there. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the biggest tools, like, I mean, I personally, I've been in the industry a long time where social media wasn't such a factor, and like, really, truly, your DJing was like had a very, very good DJ. And I think things have changed slightly, and people use some of these metrics like Instagram followers or things like that. But I think the most relevant ones that we kind of use the most are certainly Spotify, unfortunately. Um, uh, Instagram, of course, those things. But really, just whatever you have out there, just make it as polished and as authentic to who you are, because that really does shine through. And I think I've seen a lot of artists kind of come and go, and the ones that really truly remain very authentic and very intentional with what they do are the ones that have had prolonged success. Like someone that kind of comes to mind first is like a Honey Dijon. Like I've we've worked with her and I've known her for many, many years. And the way Honey played the first time I met her to the way that she plays now is pretty similar. She is who she is. Her style, her taste, her flair, what she does is who she is, and she has kept authentic, whether the music is, very minimal or whatever trends kind of come and go. She's always had her lane and always had a very true vision right from the very start. So it kind of goes back to what I was saying, like, don't be in a rush to get an agent. Don't be in a rush to get a manager. Be in a rush to figure out who you are as an agent and what you are trying to show and tell the audience. I think that's your first step that has to be cemented before you do anything else.
That's really such great advice. I think that applies to all areas of life too. Okay, so let's say you have gotten yourself booked, gotten a few opening acts under your belt, and you're feeling ready for something more. How do you then leverage those opening acts into getting maybe closer to, the headlining slot? Is it just showing up and doing the work? Can you ask for it? Can you tell the promoter or the venue, like, I'm ready for my peak time moment?
I wouldn't. I think that I think we're really lucky in Pittsburgh that we have a lot of amazing parties and shows that don't rely on headliners, and that's one of the biggest like things I'm grateful for here. So if you're out and about and people know you, they're gonna put you in that slot at some point. Like, just keep doing it. And then if you're in a network scene with other cities, that'll happen elsewhere as well. I think the one good thing about the internet, even if you're not super active on social media, is that people can at least be linked with each other. And now people travel for parties, maybe not quite as much as they used to, or maybe I'm just like getting older, and that's just me. But yeah, it'll just happen. I wouldn't ask for it unless it's it has to be. You have to feel really, really confident about it and really know the other person if you're going to do that.
Yes, I would agree. It's like in the agent world, if you were trying to poach an artist, which I don't really approve of doing, but in the rare cases that I have, I was very confident that I would get it. So, like, if you're very confident, you think you know this person really well, and you think, all right, yeah, I feel good enough to go and ask them directly, that would kind of be the only time. But most often, I'd rather let them come to me and just do your job. Just do your job in front of you in that particular moment, and it will start to lead to other things.
I think patience can be hard in these situations, but these are wise words to remember.
I think, yeah, it's a long game. I mean, the timeline has compressed a lot since when, we started with Humanot back in like the early 2000s. Like, yeah, you have to be willing to wait. I think that there's a lot of promoters that can be like, maybe I'm just kind of grumpy and older at this point, but like it rubs me the wrong way sometimes when people are just really overly persistent. It's like, just chill out. You know how long we had to wait for this? Like, you little brat.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say you're an up and coming artist. You're playing these shows, whether they're big or small, and then you feel like you're gaining some momentum. If you're not going to ask for the headline show, can you at least ask for more money? How does that work? How can you advocate for yourself if it's not getting yourself maybe the later time slot? Is there a time and place to be like, hey, can we raise my fee now that, we had some history of working together? How does that conversation play out, Aaron?
Um, I think you really have to know the the financials and the reality of the party you're playing. Like, I don't if it's like a big dumb venue, and I know they have more money, we will be like, we need more money. But if it's like a DIY party, your friends are probably not trying to rip you off. So, I mean, hopefully not. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, you really need to understand it's hard to throw parties. People are not getting rich on them. Even in developed party scenes, you're not making a lot of money. Yeah, you need to know what they're dealing with before you ask for that.
Yeah, that's very important. I mean, like, even the artists that Aaron and I worked together on with Honcho, it's like, I don't think I've ever negotiated a single thing. Aaron sends me the fee, and I'm like, perfect, we'll do it. And that's what it is, because I know what it takes and what the huge risks that they take every year and what it takes to just put something like that together. So you have to know, but like if it's, some big festival, of course, I'm gonna nail them to the wall and get the most money I can. So just kind of having that in mind is very, very important.
I want to add that's why Liaison is like there's very few. I can count on one hand the number of agencies that like truly understand their their promoters and the different markets, and like y'all are one of them. So
Well, we wouldn't have that. That's the thing. It's like my responsibility as an agent. Like, of course, I have to deal with the Golden Voices and the Insomniacs of the world because they own up a large share of the clubs. But for me personally, I started music in the underground, San Francisco rave culture. We were always having underground parties. It was almost never venues. So when I met Aaron, it was a treat when he wanted one of my artists. It was a very high compliment, and I still feel that way. I don't bombard him with people I want him to book. Aaron will tell me who he wants to book. Maybe occasionally I'll slip him something that I think might not be on his radar. But, if we don't nurture these independent promoters, they will don't play. And we can't have that. Nothing against those big companies, but really rave culture, dance music is underground culture. It's not, this is something I've felt very strongly about. So while I have to play the game with these other bigger promoters, if we're not giving breaks and understanding what the independent promoter is doing in these individual markets, we'll lose them altogether. And I think that would be really, really unfortunate.
So that's something I think a lot of artists forget, right? Because they're thinking about themselves and their paycheck. But as you both are saying, we have to keep in mind that you're part of this landscape. And for you to be successful, your peers have to be successful too. So that what I'm hearing from both of you is basically research, right? You can't just show up in a scene and expect to get paid, to get booked. Do research, figure out how these promoters are making money, how well they're doing, whether they have capacity to book more artists. And then you can see, from the talent perspective, whether there's more room for you to push or get what you want. And then speaking of research, it's something that isn't really talked about, but also essential. When it comes to playing shows, whether it's a small basement club, whether it's a big stage, whether it's even a public park, you need to know your technical skills, right? Whether that's sometimes there's no sound guy, sometimes there's no audio guy, sometimes you have to set up everything by yourself. And if you're a band, I mean, good luck to you. But in your experience, would you say that it's important for artists to know how to do their sound check, to figure out their own equipment? Is that like kind of, like touring 101 stuff that people have to figure out?
yeah, if you're playing vinyl records, understand how tricky that is, and how fraught it is at most venues. So you're gonna want to budget. You're gonna want to find out if there's a sound person immediately. That's like one of the first things. Like get me connected, and really place importance on that being the thing you care about to get squared away immediately. Test it on loud. That. Your gear. You know what pitfalls there are. You know what goes wrong. I don't usually care about sound check as much because I'm at this point like don't really drag my vinyl around, and I just use CDJs. And because I grew up in Pittsburgh in the early 2000s, we might not have even had a monitor, so we'd like learn to DJ in our headphones, like mix in our headphones. So yeah, I'm not sensitive to sound checks, but you need to know if you are and what you need.
Just because you got booked for something doesn't mean that people are going to babysit you and, feed, like spoon feed you everything. You have to know how to sort stuff out if anything goes wrong, right? I think that's something that people forget. From the talent perspective, you're focusing on doing a good show, but then what if there's an issue halfway? If you're a DJ, what if your controller stops working? It's always important to have a backup plan, right?
Yeah, especially if you don't know the promoters. Like if you've never worked with them before, if they're not your friends, like definitely get way ahead of it. Like if it's people you trust, you can probably be a little more lax, but yeah.
How important is it for the artist to kind of have an idea of how they want their lighting, for example, to look like? I think that's something most creative people, I don't know how long they spend investing in it, like should you be coming to your show with an idea of like, okay, this is what I want it to sound like, this is what I want it to look like? Is it okay to be able to tell the promoter or the venue, like, hey, can we adjust lighting? Can we adjust sound so that it matches my vision?
Yeah, I mean, do you have anything you want
Yeah, I think that's okay. I think obviously sort of know what you're doing when you're doing that. Like if maybe it's the first time you've ever played with them and you're the opening DJ, I probably wouldn't go super heavy on like the requests personally the first time. But, once you're kind of established there and things like that, I think that's perfectly fine. I think one thing I would suggest, just like if there is something that's important to you, go early. Don't go, 10 minutes before you have to start to play and be stressy and all of these things. Be polite. I know that seems like kind of a no-brainer, but it really isn't. I think being kind and being respectful to the people that are working with you will also yield you a better result, you know? So yeah, just show up ahead of time. Hey, would love to just chat it up with you really quickly. This is kind of what I had in mind. Just get those little things out and just trying to avoid doing it like right before you're supposed to walk on and play.
I mean, of course, nobody wants to work with the deep end, right? So, okay, so let's say you figured out your first couple of bookings, have some momentum. Should you be selective on what shows you play? Let's say you've done a couple of shows here in Pittsburgh, you're feeling good, you're feeling yourself, and then you're getting your inbox is slowly blowing up. Should you be selective or should you just say yes to every show, especially when you're an up and coming artist?
I think that um I think that a gig should kind of fit a few different categories. Like it should either feed your soul, which should either give you exposure or it should pay you very well. I don't think that I think when you're first starting out, yeah, you're probably going to take as much as you can and do what you need to do, but you still want to make sure that it's something that aligns with like your artistry and that it's a good fit because like let's say, you're a house DJ and you get an offer to open up for an EDM DJ. You're not going to put yourself in the best place. So I probably wouldn't do that. I think as you grow into your career, being selected is very important. What you say no to is almost as important as what you say yes to in a lot of ways because it's helping you kind of tell your story. And I think gigs sort of have to fit those three things. Like, someone like a gig like a gig like Hot Mass or Honcho or any of those things, like that's something that's gonna feed your soul, right? It's probably not gonna like make you the richest, but it's something that you're getting back, So but that checks that box, Or if it's something that's incredibly well paid and maybe doesn't feed your soul so much, but feeds your pocketbook. That's another very acceptable thing. And then there's also things that are just very good exposure. Maybe it's an artist that you have always dreamed of playing with or someone that you respect or admire.
Yeah, and I would say you also need to do your research. You need to do your research on everyone and make sure it aligns with your values as well. Like I don't think, playing for Boiler Room today doesn't really do as much for you as it did back in the day. So and you should make sure that you know what these people stand for before you play for them. Um, yeah, I don't know. And even the ones that don't feed your soul, like when feels a little off sometimes, like it's good practice to learn like what does your version of festival bangers sound like? Like it doesn't need to be not you. It can still be authentic. I think it's fun to kind of like get practice doing those things as long as it doesn't feel like too much of a stretch for you. It shouldn't feel like, it's fun to push the boundary a little bit, but don't go, you know, way over here.
What advice would you give to maybe up and coming artists who are relying on gigging as their main income source? And, they feel pressured to maybe say yes to one of these weird corporate back gigs that maybe they don't feel aligned with musically, but it's big money gig for them. Uh, what's the best way to go about it? I mean, is there a real yes and no? Is there a black and white answer, or does it really depend on where you are in your life at that time?
Personally, I would really encourage people to hang on to some other source of income so that you don't have all the pressure on your artistry. And I think you'll know when it's time. Like I think we spoke about Ash, and I remember she was working at this call center, and the next day she just called me and she said, "Yeah, I just can't do it." And she was ready, like, that was the point, like, but she kept that job for a really long time just so that she could have this income and then be able to focus on that. And then when you think that you're really ready to sort of cut that tie, then yeah, you can do that. But it's a lot of pressure to survive on just your bookings and just gigging, unless you have gotten to a place where you can keep your personal expenses really low. I try to push people away from that because I think it just puts too much pressure on that. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Yeah, I would say that you really have to weigh the misery level versus payout. It's like truly how miserable am I going to be at this gig? If it's like a little just slightly irritated, might be fine. You know, like you can smile and get through it and play some good music. And just like I think for me the hardest thing in those moments is like managing my own expectations so that I'm not like flustered and like you know what it is, you're doing a job, you know what it's going to be, you're happy with it, you can put on the smile, do your set, get out. As long as it's not like extracting your energy and emotions, I think that's you just have and that changes gig to gig. Like maybe you're not having the best weekend or like you know that you're in a pinch, you know, that can change all the time.
I think as we kind of approach the end of our conversation here, I think one question that I am personally very curious to get both your thoughts on, let's say when you're an artist and you get to the point where you're ready to go on tour, okay? You've gotten enough momentum in your home city, you're feeling good about yourself, and you're being selective about the gigs, and you think you seem to have a pretty good strategy. Now, does this strategy apply to like a nationwide tour or an international tour? Should you still be selective and picky? Should you be doing all of the things that we discussed, doing research on each promoter, making sure they align with your vision musically, they align with your values? That's a lot of research to do for a tour. Is that what people do?
I think so. Yes, I do. I have a lot of, I have artists of all sizes. Like for me, growing an artist from the start is like one of my great joys. I take a lot of pride in that. So I do have a handful of artists that are really in the beginning stages of their careers. And there's a lot of times where we have to do little things like maybe they don't have European, representation. So they'll ask me and maybe I'll come in and just fill a couple little bowls here and there or answer their questions or whatever. But I think it's the same strategy wherever you go. And yes, people do research that, especially if you're going over to Europe. You should know who you're playing with, labor, what sort of scene they're in, these types of things. So yeah, there is research, but like this is a job. Like I think people kind of forget that sometimes, and I think the most successful artists are the ones that do treat it with a lot of discipline and a lot of reverence and a lot of respect. You should be working on your craft every single day, whatever it is. If it's getting in the studio, if it's practicing, whatever it is, you should be doing something to further your craft every single day.
I would say also if you're just starting out, you can't just pull a tour out of thin air. Like you should have like one or two anchor gigs, and then like let's say you get a really cool gig in San Francisco and you're going out west. Um, Great, that's a start. You get out there, you know what day it is. Look at the cities around it, and when I say around it, I mean like L.A. You know all the western cities: Salt Lake, Denver,
San Diego.
San Diego, Portland, we all know. What can you get to quickly? Who are the people doing similar things? Can you see their schedule online and their cadence of parties? Do you have contact with them? Do you have friends who have contact with them? You're going to need to rely on your friends of friends. And then just start trying to put together something that makes sense for everyone. I always like would try to do the most like I would try to aim at the like lowest hanging fruit first. The ones that I know might come through, lock those in, and then just start like filling it in and try to do it, in a way that isn't going to cost you. You should also have a spreadsheet. There's a lot of different ways to plan it, but like put in all your income, put in what, check your flight prices, your travel prices, what you're going to need to spend on food. Make sure that you're not going broke doing it, and you can actually afford to do it on the income you're going to get. That's how I would start.
Can you just quickly define what an anchor gig is? For
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, one that's guaranteed. Like someone's offered you a gig, it pays pretty well. Your flight's covered. You're going to be able to walk with money after it. Um, yeah, or maybe not, or maybe you don't care and you just want to like maybe it's break even and you're happy with that. And this is just for fun to get out there. Those are cool too. Um, yeah, and then go for the good ones around it, I guess. And I think one thing that always helps is like then you can like get a multi-city ticket, which is always cheaper than like piecemealing the flights together. You do like advanced search and you wait till all the gigs are confirmed, buy everything as one ticket, usually cheaper that way. And also check out like the prices. Like sometimes flying from one city to the other is like weirdly more expensive than the other way around. So that gets really nerdy and I'm into that. If you need help with that, you can hit me up. I love to do it because I'm weird.
I love to do it too.
Honestly, it sounds like planning a tour is like being a travel agent.
Yeah, it is. And I was gonna say, like, even to come here today, it was like, I wanted this certain flight and to be comfortable because I'm old and I've flown a lot of miles. So I flew to LA so that I could go LA to JFK and then JFK onto Pittsburgh. But that like worked for me. Another thing, I know it sounds very silly, but like take care of your miles. Miles are money, super important. Get a frequent, settle on one airline or two airlines and put all your focus on those things. Another thing, let's say, like you said, someone books you in San Francisco and you're from the East Coast. Maybe even ask or, hey, like, do you have any friends in San Diego or do you have anything else like that? And sometimes that promoter may even say, oh, hey, I'll get my buddy in San Diego and in Phoenix, and we'll give you, a little free weekend tour to cut down on everybody's expenses, including yours. So, like things like that, you won't ask, you won't know until you ask that. I think that's a good way as well.
And beware the airline credit card. Unless you have extreme financial discipline, it's a quick way to ruin.
We could talk about touring forever, but I want to save this topic for the Q&A from the audience. But one last question just to kind of round this off. What is the hallmark of a successful tour? Is it the amount of gigs you play? Is it that you come home with a profit? Or what's the kind of goal? Is it just to meet as many people and connect with as many promoters and venues? Or is it for you to make money? Or both?
I think that's really up to you. Like, what do you want out of it?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I have artists on my roster that they want to just play. When they come to the United States, they want to play in their mind the good shows. They don't really care what the financial like aspect is. They want to play quality shows within the community that they're a part of. I have certain artists that are like, I want to make the most money possible and I'm going to retire in 5 years. So it does depend. What does success look like for you? But I think ultimately the ultimate goal is number one, that yes, you're bringing in some revenue. We all have to pay our bills and make money. But number two being connection being with fans, promoters, all of that. So aim to connect and to hopefully make some money and bring that home as well.
Lovely. So I just want to quickly, before I open it up to all of y'all, just want to remind everyone some of the big takeaways we learned from this great chat. A lot of it was, figuring out what you want to say as an artist before you can think about booking shows for yourself, getting a manager, getting a legendary agent like Mariesa, if you're lucky. Figure out what kind of craft you have and like what your goals are. I think one of the reoccurring themes of this chat has been like figure out what success looks like for you. And that might not be what it looks like for your friends or your peers in the scene. So it's important to have your own take. Research, lots of research, whether that's flight travel, research from promoters, and I think most of all, going out, right? Just going out to shows, going out to supporting the scene that you want to be part of. Any last takeaways before we open it up? I feel like we got the main points. All right, now it's your turn. I hope you all have questions for these two legends up there. We have a mic that will be traveling around, so please feel free.
All right. That sounds good. Okay. Yes. I'll come to you, sir.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name is Steve. So on behalf of the young people who might get inspired, is it a good idea to rent a PA and try to throw a party so you can play at it?
I missed what was the last part of that? I'm sorry, I'm behind the speaker.
Rent a PA so that you can throw your own party and play at it.
Yeah, actually I wrote a lot of notes on this one. Uh I don't know, what does your party say and add to what already exists? I think that a successful scene has players who do not take from others or push someone out. I think that if you can provide something that no one is doing or with your own twist on it, I think we do a great job of that in Pittsburgh. It's very inspiring lately. Um, yes, if you are just duplicating what's already out there, maybe think a little longer on it and put it back in the oven, your idea, until it's ready.
Maybe on that, like if you did want to throw your own party, what are the first steps to get something started?
Find good people that you trust. Number one, you can't do it all yourself unless you're insane and you have a million friends who will just show up. You need someone who can handle the money really well. You need someone who can boss a door or solve a problem on the fly. You need someone who can run a reasonably good sound system. Please do not cheap out on the sound. It is the number one thing that people will screw up out of the gate. No one can dance to like these turned all the way up. Um, yeah, you need to think about every aspect. There's like safety, wellness, taking care of people, keeping the venue clean, depending on what venue you're working at, like if they do it or not, if you're doing a DIY space. Um, yeah, I don't know. Just think about what the things that you care about in a party and then all the back end things that you need to deal with and make sure you're prepared to deal with those.
And just piggyback on the theme, how many shows as a promoter should you be doing before you kind of begin to break even? Should you just expect to lose money for the first year, 2 years, longer?
You really, unless you are making like fuck you money for some reason, like you should really try breaking even or making you're putting time into it. You should make money. Like I see some of these graphics, and I am gonna gripe for a minute, like going around about people celebrating festivals that don't pay themselves. Like that's a quick way to like resenting what you love. Um, you cannot pour your lives into something and your time and not get paid. You have to pay yourself something.
Yeah. And I also think that like this goes a little bit deeper. Like if you are working with an agent, like this is something that like for me, I if this is gonna put you in financial peril, don't do it. Do not do it. I promise you booking whoever DJ is not worth it. You have to go to the agents and give a reasonable offer of the best that you can do. And if not, like you will lose money and you will be out of business very, very quickly. And no one wants that. I don't want that as an agent. Artists don't want that. I had one promoter, he was just constantly losing money, right? Or at about out of the pandemic, like maybe it was kind of late 2021, 22. And I finally just said to him, I'm friends with him, and I just said, "Babe, like, you gotta cut it. Like, I'm not gonna book another show with you because it makes me feel bad when you lose money and you're telling me that you're taking money from your life savings. Like, don't do that. Do not do that. It's not worth anything. I'd rather you go for something a smaller scale show. Start with the artists that you can really truly afford to pay." And maybe that's only a $1,500 artist or $1,000 artist, and that's okay. I've been to great parties with artists that make $1,000, $1,500, and it's perfectly fine. But don't overshoot yourself there.
Or even like your favorite locals, which is what is going on well here. Like pick one from different crews, like one from each crew that you really love and have musical overlap with that you think is like, these are the people I want to dance to, and book them and it'll work.
Absolutely. As a promoter, your goal is to get people to your event. So you got to book people who will bring different crowds. So I like that.
one less thing to add, don't center yourself immediately. I would center others first and warm it up and establish it that way.
The question in the front here.
So coming from like the anarchist and DIY space, I'm accustomed to just putting paint on a canvas and like, doing everything myself. How do you legitimize something like Maybe Land or like Honcho Camp Out? Like what goes into the merchandising and goes into making all the flyers and banners and things that really make it look polished?
Well, a good designer. I think, we struggle with that because we all used to kind of be designers and still are in some capacity. We've learned to let go because we can't do it all. And we still have to keep letting go. It's an ongoing lesson. You really have to let go and find people you trust. Yeah, we're still figuring that out. And if you get the right people around you that can deliver on time and who care, with fresh eyes, they're going to help. But also, you have good ideas too. Maybe you don't have to execute the idea. Maybe you have a great idea, but you can find someone to help you take that one thing over the finish line. That's I would say, just find people.
As a, up and coming event organizer, should you make sure that you have enough budget to pay a graphic designer, pay like security staff if you need it for your event? Is that, that's the number one kind of thing to think about in financial planning?
Yeah, and we have like pretty good templates at this point that I think we probably shared with half the room. If you need help with that, we're happy to do that. Just you have to think about everything and write it down. Just reach out.
Anybody else? Yeah. Coming over there.
So I'm not sure I understood everything, but my sense is that a lot of this has had to do with DJ kind of stuff. So like if you're a solo, duo, trio kind of a person, um, are there like main promoters in Pittsburgh that exist that if you don't know where to start, it's all fine to say find a promoter. But, are there certain larger entities that promote for like all the rib fests, we'll say, in this summer? Like are there those kind of people that if you're looking to reach out to somebody, they would be your best bet?
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to do research. You're gonna need to. I would ask people who is doing the bookings at those things. You know, sometimes like every festival has a booker, every venue has a booker. Uh, it's tough. You really just have to weed it out in the network. Like you have to ask around. Um, that's how I've always gotten contacts. I don't know if anyone else has more on there.
I mean, as a member of the press, I will say that reading articles, reading websites that cater to your genre of music, like at Resident Advisor, we do cover a lot of DJs and electronic music, but there are versions of that for, hip hop, for rock, whatever kind of genre you're into. It's really easy to go on those sites, remember the event organizer's name, Google them, do a lot of Googling. That's really it. Go on social media, it's, find out where people are, and then that can gives you an idea of who the main players are. And that's it.
You can also go directly to the websites of these venues and festivals. There's usually some kind of email address or contact form. If they don't have the booking person listed, you can just ask the main one. They'll usually route you to the right person. That's like, you kind of just have to like cast a wide net and hit it all, and someone will get back to you.
Very easy.
Hi. You mentioned some things that work really well in Pittsburgh. I'm wondering, what else do you think works well in the city, and what would authentic growth look like in Pittsburgh?
What, one more time? There was like a room.
Well, you mentioned some things that work really well in Pittsburgh. What else would you like to see in Pittsburgh, and what would authentic growth look like?
I mean, we're always going to need more dancers and people. I think that we've done a really great job of getting everyone excited about what we love. I think that, you know, there's a lot more people going out to things now because than there were. Everyone's tapping their different networks. I would love to see better support from the government, the city, like even if it's not financial. We have a nightlife mayor, like the night coordinator. That trend like popped off a long time ago, and Pittsburgh actually was one of the first to get it. But the only thing she did was start working on like bar fights in the South Side, and like she's great. She's a lovely person, and we've had a lot of conversations. But she's just anytime we've gone for like help with something or a boost or like, can you help us connect the dots here, or can you help us with this noise ordinance thing at Spirit, or can you? There's just like not. They just like don't care or don't. They're not willing to like truly get involved. That's like number one. We have a lot of really dumb laws here. Neighbors can anonymously file noise complaints. One person can take down your business forever if they want to just keep calling and calling and calling and calling. And you never know who they are. You will never know which neighbor it is. That's crap. We need to be protecting these spaces. There needs to be protection for venues that exist. There needs to be help getting venues up to code. There needs to be help. P-Town is kind of, it's not totally that, but like that was one instance of like they raided it, shut it down, didn't call in advance, didn't do anything proactively to help them. They racked up $60,000 in fines and then $20,000 in renovations to fix the problem. What about all that $60,000 then is being tried to be raised like through GoFundMe on the backs of everyone who participates? Like, why couldn't they have gotten ahead of it and like solved that in advance? Or like then they would have paid $20,000 and it'd been over, Sorry, that got me a little upset. But
Oh,
yeah, I mean,
preach.
yeah, and then like other venues that are a little more like black box, like good sound, stick to the basics. I mean, I do think we need more spaces. Unfortunately, they all only go till 2 if you're serving a liquor for the liquor license. I think access to spaces, there's a lot of empty properties in the city that just get sat on for decades because they think that the developer or the owner thinks that they're going to like someday get a Google or something. And like all these spaces could be put to use. There should be a pipeline. That's another thing the city can get involved in, is helping place people in these spaces. Why not let people test them out? Like, why not let people use them, work with the city to get it like up to code enough for a special event, at affordably. Like, I think there's a lot more nurturing that could be done in that regard. I think that we have the right people doing things. We have great promoters and creatives and artists. Like, we're all here, but no one's giving us the resources, and that has to change.
That was a really great answer. More questions? Oh. I'm going to go to the closest first.
Hey, thanks for being here. So I'm curious if you're aware of any comprehensive resources to actually learn how to play live. So I've never played live. I make music all on Ableton, and I can show up and hit play. But other than that, I don't know what I'm doing. So I could go online and maybe watch YouTube and stuff like that. But I'm curious if there's anything out there that you're aware of where you can learn all the technicalities, basically.
I don't know. I'm definitely not the right person, but they're in this room. There's a lot of them in this room around you right now. So maybe everyone can go hang out.
Yeah. The individual behind you actually is a great one for that. And here on November 14th, we're gonna have a whole like playground setup, and one of them will be about Ableton Live. Oh, sorry. And another question here.
Great shout out an event. This is just a question out of my own curiosity. I've been seeing our local legends popping up in other cities, residencies in other cities. Saw Davis shouted out on a podcast, like on Instagram, like things like that. I feel so much like personal pride over. I'm wondering what you all perceive as the kind of visibility that Pittsburgh artists and crews are having in the national scene, whether it's, you know, local to the East Coast or internationally? What do you feel like there's this kind of exchange that's starting to happen? I feel like as a supporter, I'm perceiving that there's this kind of recent growth, but I might just not know contextually the history enough. But yeah, I'm just curious.
I mean, I feel like there is. It's hard to pinpoint a sound, but you know there's a sound. Um, it's Midwest. It is like kind of Midwest. It's a mixture of everything, but it's all, you know, I don't know. There's a lot of like leaning on like analog sounds and more like respect for the more classic sounds, but also done in a modern way. I don't know. It doesn't sound like, you know, you're not getting like the burnery sounds or anything like, you know, I don't know. It's hard to put my finger on that. But yeah, I mean, I think Pittsburgh works well with a lot of other cities, the producers that I've seen here. And I think people are recognizing that. I think that we have personally biased, but I feel like, you know, it's like Pittsburgh and Seattle have always had a similar like thread following them, you know, the DJs and the producers. And I think that we punch way above our weight, and it's pretty cool to see. I hope people keep getting out of the city and working more with arts.
Yeah, I mean, I would add to that from a music journalist point of view, Pittsburgh is just like gold standard for producers. As when I started my job, I didn't know that much what was happening here, maybe festivals or parties, but I knew all the artists. So that tells you something that the music being made here is being heard globally, which is really something.
There's one time a long time ago, we heard that Chase Smith track. Which one was it? The really gnarly one. And we heard it in like 3 rooms at Berghain within like 1 hour. And I was like, great. But also stop.
Question over here.
I'm thinking about festivals that I've either played or gone to where I'm like, oh, this is bringing together a certain group of people, and it has this energy. It's not just getting asses into seats. And so in Pittsburgh is a small town in some ways. How do you navigate like making an event that brings a certain community together versus just like we need to get as many people to here? Because it's a tough balance to be like, well, we need to be successful with people, but we need a certain community that comes together around this music that makes it special or something like that.
You need to really know who you want to touch on and get the anchors of those groups. You need to, like, a festival, and the environment is important. You need to find the right space that feels good to everyone, that excites people. And you need to like make it accessible. I would start like as simple and like basic as you can to accomplish just like that vibe first. And it's fine if it's small, and just build out from there. I mean, Camp Out started, it was 200 people maybe. And yeah, you just like realize, and then every year you're like, okay, that was cool, but like, how do we fix this and that and make that a little better? And just push a little bit, and just keep people excited and keep leaning on the community and make sure they're engaged and excited and getting the word out for you. I don't know.
Just to riff off that question too, both from as a promoter as an artist, that level of scale, like how do you scale your community? Like let's say you want to be intentional about people coming to your gigs, whether you're performing or whether you're organizing it, and you obviously want to have the right people. We don't want there to be a certain level of etiquette at the band gig or at the festival. How do you reach outside your immediate circle of friends to get more of those people? Is it a question of promoting, marketing? Do you just put your event maybe in certain record shops and like certain other areas where you think like-minded people are congregating?
I don't think it's like one size fits all. I think it's very incremental and should be slow and careful. That's my take on it. I only see things go wrong when people try to overdo it, including like lessons I've learned in the past. You know, um, you have a grand vision and we just really overestimated yourself. I feel like I'm.
You should. I feel like
Yeah.
talk a lot about.
Yeah, I mean, careful, incremental. Let You'll know the path to like grow it. Like it will be apparent to you, I think. And just lean into that when you see it.
Question back here.
Hi. I had a question that kind of touched upon, I guess, promoters looking for new acts and people to book. I was wondering, let's say an artist kind of has figured out their sound and has honed in. I think I kind of get an idea what makes me me. Outside of Spotify or SoundCloud and putting mixes out, is there and not doing like a big description, emailing people cold? Is there a good way via social media or some way to kind of best present yourself as what makes you different from everyone else?
Yeah. Like, how do you get yourself noticed by the right people?
Yeah, that can be tough. I mean, I think, obviously social media is such a huge part of all of our lives and it's kind of this mandatory thing as an artist. Um, but I do think that authenticity is very, very important. I hammered that a couple times, but in the past couple of years, I just have really noticed a change. I think after the pandemic, there were a lot of DJs that just popped up. Um, I don't know if it was people being at home and had more time to focus on a hobby or something like this, but I just felt like there was the number of artists that I had hitting me up for representation, like almost, like I probably get maybe 20 requests a week, something like that. And I think the ones that really kind of stick out to me is the ones that are really clear with their vision, really intentional. And you have to think that like the person that you're sending this stuff to, they're really only going to look at it for a minute, you know, making sure like everything looks and sounds and works really well. Like I had somebody send me something and none of the links and the thing that they sent worked. So of course I'm not gonna take time to reply to this person. Say, can you please send me correct links? Polishing it up, just really being intentional with your socials, even if it's limited. I would just make sure these are like the strongest things that you can be putting forward and ones that are most authentic to you.
I would also lean on your network. Maybe you have people. I would identify things that people and media or whatever it is that you want to be noticed by, and try to find the middle step between the two, and have them be your advocate. It'll feel natural. It'll feel like it's coming from a trustworthy source instead of a press kit.
Just to also riff off that question, what is the best way to network? That's a theme that's come up throughout this conversation. Like, talk about going out to the gigs, saying hi, but like, what does that actually mean to successfully network without coming off as too cheesy or too thirsty? Is there an art to it that has worked for us both of you?
I think it can look different for everyone. I mean, maybe you are a legend in the YouTube comments, like that could probably be one, or on Discogs. Um, if you're not like a social person, it's just sending music out and having dialogue via email. Just find where you're comfortable talking and do that. But you have to get out there in some way, whether that's like from your computer or like in person.
Somebody else? There's a question in the front.
Hi, me again. I'm actually really curious about how to set up next generations for success because I've seen um within the last 5 or so years like this really big shift in newer folks not necessarily being inducted into club culture, party culture, not knowing what taking care of a space looks like or means, and where those responsibilities lie, and how can I as journalist, I as performer, I as um, booker, how can I help take care of that and really uh, bring 18, 19, 20, 21 year olds into like, these are the unspoken rules of what nightlife is and how to carry those forward.
You have to tell them in a very like compassionate and parental way. I think you can't just like call them out. I'm so sick of like internet comments and like, you know, it's not dragging people online. It's not that. You have to like make them trust you and tell them what's up in a way that is, you know, I don't know, kind, so that they are receptive. No one's going to be receptive to it if you're preaching, you know. I've somehow managed up to do a lot of that in like weird, intense moments at the club before. I don't know if I can do it anymore, but
It's also important that no matter what kind of space you're performing in, whether it's a DIY concert space or like even someone's home, say you're having a house party, it's important, I think, from the event organizers' kind of point of view to have like a dedicated chill out space where they can go over these rules, where they can go over how to take care of people and like how to make sure that everyone's, partying safely. And that kind of stuff goes a long way in kind of building the next generation and imbuing this culture onto younger people who might not know that these are the house parties. But having a dedicated space where you can step away from the music and then have someone there maybe telling you, like, maybe not like, not preaching or not scolding you if you did something wrong, but just telling you like, hey, this is how, we like to enjoy it.
yeah, like signage and email communications. I can't stress. This is something that I also wrote down was like everyone should have an email list if you're doing a party or you're a producer or something. Like if you're selling tickets to something, you need to start building an email list. It's the only way to bypass the algorithm completely, and say exactly what you want to who you want. It's another great way to like have dialogue with people. You can just write an email about things. It doesn't need to be promoting something. Maybe you're promoting something and you're also talking about other topics. Yeah.
More questions? I don't know if you'll be the last one, but I'll come over to you.
Somebody wants to have
It might work. You might start a waterfall of questions,
I doubt it. So I just want to say, the topic you guys really touched on, you gotta crawl before you walk. There's a lot to do. Start back at the basics. I like how you start the basics. Basics is where it's at, and you guys did a good job. And thank you for telling us what you've gone through. But one question: biggest pet peeves and favorite place to play in Pittsburgh.
Wait, was that
Biggest pet peeves? Pet peeves. Like
pet
what?
peeves?
For booking people or at venues?
Talking on the dance floor. Shut up. There's a lot of places you can go. Don't do it there. And I think that's like the biggest thing that the young crowd is doing that drives me insane. There's all these other parts of the club that you can go talk. Just go there. And that includes like small talk on the dance floor. Like if I'm like dancing, like you don't need to know how my day went or my week went or like whatever, It's probably the same as yours. And favorite place to play is obviously hot mats. I don't know. Or the boat. The boat's fun.
I think one of my pet peeves, just in general, when it comes to whether you're at a concert or you're at a DJ set or a festival, is people not like fans, like a normal person who maybe doesn't work in the industry or is not involved in music, just a regular person who bought a ticket, when they're not patient enough and they don't wait to hear their favorite, like, how some people are like, oh, this music is so boring. They're not playing my favorite songs. I paid money to see this act and they're not giving me what I want. And then they leave. That's what I don't like. I think you should give the artists on stage some time to do their thing, and maybe they're not playing your favorite songs, but they might an hour later if you stick around. So I think just having patience and letting the talent figure out what they want to do and how they want to do it. Any last questions?
Oh, yes. I thought you wanted one from the beginning, to be honest. I kept looking at you.
So I've been able to play a few live sets here in Pittsburgh, like over the last year or so. I still feel kind of like on the periphery of the scene, I guess. I have like social anxiety, so I don't know how to get to like know people. I'm kind of the person who goes to hot mess and just like leans against the wall. Like I want to get more involved and like help out, volunteer. Like what do local venues need? Like what do they need help with? How can I get more involved in like an authentic way? So, because obviously I want to play more shows, but I want to get to, know people better.
Well, I mean, the DIY parties always need volunteers or people, door help, people doing coat check, people doing, bartending. But I would look to the smaller parties that you like the most and try to see what they need. Even setup help. Sometimes they just need a couple extra hands to put things together or tear down. You don't want to walk up to them in person, you can email them or message them on Instagram or whatever. And I think, we've had a lot of people pulled in that way is what I would say. Just ask them.
More questions? So I also have one. Mariesa, if I'm an artist that's feeling like I'm ready to start having an agent, what sort of fee amount or would I be prepared for financially at a starting space to know I need to budget for that or know that I'm ready for someone like you?
What do you expect the artist fee to be?
How financially what should I budget for to have an agent as well? Or what are they taking from my show fee?
Oh, I see. Yes. So most agents in the structure that we're in right now, it's just a 10% of the gross fee. So if you're making $2,000, the agent's going to take $200. There are a few smaller agencies that they might offer what we call advanced services, which is, advancing the show, meaning getting in touch with the promoter, making sure they have your, rides and hotel and your set times and all that stuff, coordinating all that. We used to do that. We've kind of gone away from that model because our roster kept getting bigger and you couldn't just keep hiring booking coordinators to help facilitate that. And in that case, we charge 15%, but usually it's a 10% right off the top. Management can be anywhere between 10 and 20%. So that's also something to kind of keep in mind. I think usually traditionally the agent comes first and then management. Sometimes it's the reverse, but you'll have to keep in mind that there's some cases where they could be taking 40% of your fee before you. Well, if you think about this, if you're a foreign artist, they're going to take 30% taxes right off the top. Then your agent will take 10. Then your manager will take 10 or 20. So just kind of keep those numbers in mind. And I think that's also it's better to build slowly so that you actually have the money to, support these other people that are working on your behalf.
Just staying on the topic of money, let's say you're an up and coming act here in Pittsburgh or just around Pennsylvania, whether it's Philly or even bigger cities, New York, SF. What kind of fee should you be expecting to get? I mean, I know it depends on the venue. Let's say someone who really doesn't have much of a history of performing. Ballpark, it's a small venue. I know it's tough.
If it's really early, I don't know, I would think 100,
500 might be good.
that's kind of high.
That's
That's
really
kind of high
good.
for Pittsburgh. Yeah. That's a good first gig at Pittsburgh. Yeah, I mean it stinks, but 1 to 300. If depending on what they can pull off, really depends on the event.